So our presentation focus and our outline is to look at the undesired trends in Jamaica and the church. In effect, we're looking at the ills of the person. And then we'll look at the importance of Jamaican and church families from two perspectives. First, from biblical and Christian authority, and then anecdotal and scientific evidence. The next step will be treating the ills of society, as it were, and that will be fulfilling three strands: respect and reciprocity and loving acts, unison and strength of leadership, biblical roles of mother and father. And then, as we draw to an end, the benefits to be derived from building positive spousal relationships, and then concluding with something of a charge as a sort of encouragement to help us on our way. And so, the princess finds her prince charming, and as the story so aptly ends, they lived happily ever after, until the children came. Research consistently shows that marital happiness is reduced significantly by the time couples enter into the mother and father relationship. After the couples have dated and courted and engaged and married, those initial few years are exclusively theirs. And even during the early pregnancy stages, the excitement of their first love is still there. However, enriching the spousal relationship often ends when the children turn up. It's a case of, I take you to be my spouse until the children do us part. Children are a heritage from the Lord. Children can be a blessing, but children also complicate a couple relationship. The husband and wife must now shift or adjust from coupling to parenting, and both coupling and parenting have no manual. Knowledge built on biblical precepts and much prayer can help towards moving a relationship from an ordeal to the ideal. And so I'd like to say it is the roles in the spousal relationship that is the determining factor in whether both husband and wife will function at peak performance in their roles in the mother and father relationship. So we are going to be looking at the husband and wife couple relationship and the husband and wife in the mother and father relationship. So Howard, help us to understand what these ills are.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. All right, before we actually really go deep into the presentation about building a mother-father relationship, we just want to have a look at some of the undesired trends that's actually taking place here in Jamaica as well as the church. And I think this will provide a backdrop to what we're going to present to you a little later. So, some of the undesired trends that's in Jamaica as well as the church. All right? I don't believe that these trends are just unique to Jamaica. In fact, they're kind of global. And what we have here, we have poor communication, we have negative conflict, domestic violence, lack of intimacy, distrust, infidelity, poor quality time, poor spousal commitment, poor children commitment, and issues relating to migration. Poor communication. What we find here, especially in Jamaica, you know, people come to Jamaica and they say, boy, Jamaicans, they're aggressive. They're really aggressive people. But if you talk to the Jamaicans, they say, we are assertive people. That's who we are assertive. But a lot of people come across and see us as being aggressive. But that's not really true. But however, in a lot of marriages over here and in the church, we find there's a lot of negative startup, a lot of blame and criticism. And, you know, when we first get married, it's almost like we say, excuse me, darling, let me just pass by here a little. But, you know, when we get into the marriage about after a year or so, we say something like, move your hoof. Huh? And sometimes we say, woman, you're too fat, lose some weight. Or we say, what kind of man you be? You know, all this negative has an impact on the relationship, and it really isn't good for me and Sharon, and neither is it good for the children. Then we look at domestic violence. Unfortunately, Jamaica has one of the highest rates of domestic violence over here. It's almost like it's still culturally acceptable for a man to abuse his wife. And we're not just talking about outside the church people, we're talking about inside the church. People are coming to counseling, church people are coming to counseling and saying, my husband is beating me. Men are coming to counseling and saying, my wife is beating me. It's a terrible problem here in Jamaica. 4% of murders are actually linked to domestic violence. And like I said, it's not just the women experiencing it, it's the men that's experiencing it. And you often find out some of the men, you know, the women will go out in the street and still beat the man same way. All right, and that is not good for us as a couple, neither is it good for us as children. Lack of intimacy. My husband don't talk to me. Howard, why you not talk to me? I need some emotional support. You're not talking to me. Oftentimes we find ourselves sitting in front of the TV and nobody is talking to each other. We're just there watching the news, thinking that we're spending quality time. But all it is just, we're just there watching the news. As soon as the news finishes, the man goes on the computer and the wife goes back into the kitchen and do what they're doing. But nobody is actually talking to each other. And women, they love communication. They love when we talk with them. That's how they feel intimate. You can see in this first picture here, the husband is just looking at the TV and the wife is just looking away saying, this man not talking to me. Lord, what am I going to do with this man? And nowadays, you know, there's a lot of stress taking place in Jamaican homes. Men are out working long hours, trying to make a mickle, trying to bring some money in for the family. And when he comes home, sometimes the man is tired. And the wife is thinking, why, Lord, tell this man to wake up and give me some loving. And a lot of men nowadays, they're unable to meet the needs of their wives in a sexual way. Sometimes actually the man is too demanding. Sometimes he wants too much, you know, and that can actually have a negative impact on the relationship as well as the children. We see here, man a man. We used to hear that saying all the time, didn't we? Man a man. But nowadays we have to say, woman a woman. We have here the issues of infidelity in the society, Jamaican society, as well as in the church. There is this issue about infidelity. It is a plague here. Men and women, they cheat alike. Did you know that out of every 100 men that actually go to visit, get the test for DNA for their children, every 100 men that go there, 33% find that they get jacket. The child does not belong to them. And a lot of these men, you know, they've spent many years developing a relationship with that child. And so, you know, for the sake of that relationship, for the sake of their shame, they continue to actually have a relationship with that child. But sometimes that child may actually experience the wrath of that father. All right? And the children, his real children, get all the attention. Divorce and single parents. We're still looking at the undesired trends, okay? It says almost half of families are headed by single females. And a lot of these relationships, or a lot of these single females headed homes, they are being visited by men. You will find that one man will actually visit half a dozen different single females headed homes. All right, and some of these men are husbands from different relationships. But in terms of these relationships, By the time a child is age 12, 50% of these relationships are going to end, leaving the child feeling alone and abandoned. Between 2001 and 2010, divorce have been up by 40%. It's gone from 1691 in 2001 to 2,371 in 2010. The little good news with that, actually, you know that Jamaica still has one of the lowest divorce rates in the world. It ranks about 13th in the world with the lowest divorce rates. However, we need to take note that it is rapidly increasing and changing. Absent fathers, absent mothers. Wow. We always hear the story about the absent father. The father comes in and he lies with the woman and gives her a child, and then you don't see him after a few weeks, after a few months. He's gone. And the poor child is just left without a father. And sometimes that child is introduced to another father, a stepfather, and that child is going to experience maybe physical abuse or even sexual abuse. And apparently, you know, when the father's not around, they tend to actually have a lower IQ than children where the father is actually present. And so it's telling us the importance of having the father in the child's life. And they also have poor school performance. You also find that teenage sex and pregnancy is higher when the father or even the mother is not around. I have a lot of clients coming to me where the mother has actually migrated to like America or Canada, and they're saying to me, Mr. Anderson, you can't help me. You can't help me. You can't give me what I need. And what do they need? They need the mother. That's what they want. I can't help them. No matter how much I try to soften them up and talk with them and encourage their spirit, at the end of the day, they're going to stay angry because mommy is not there in their lives. And it's a common thing. And we need to begin to look at that. We see the picture here of the Empire Windrush, don't we? Which a lot of Jamaicans, they went to England in 1948 and they made a life for themselves. And because of that, Jamaica was able to experience some of that beauty and that wealth coming back to them. But there is a danger in the cost to us psychologically and emotionally. And even with that kind of thing, we create sometimes a tsunami of infidelity, all right? Because the relationship is strained when you're so far away that you end up being pulled into another relationship. And that is not good for me or Sharon, neither is it good for the children. You've heard the term barrel children, haven't you? Where the parents, they go away, and what they do, they send them food and clothing and those kinds of things, as if that's going to help the child. I realize it's the best they can do at the time, but really the child is still suffering because they want their mommy and they want their daddy. I'm going to mention this one, discipline and corporal punishment, especially amongst us men. You know, I come from a family where my father, he was a disciplinarian. All right, when I wasn't behaving myself, he would whoop me. You see this picture here? This child getting a whooping? That's how my father was to me. He would whoop me, all right? And that's how a lot of us men stay. We just whoop the child, believing that this is the best for the child. But you know something? I was angry with my daddy for a couple of years because all he did was just beat. He didn't really talk to me. And we need to be careful because some of this stuff that we're looking at, the beating and the thrashing, is coming from slavery. It breaks the spirit of the person. And we need to be careful that we don't break the spirit of our children. And so we need to be careful about what we call discipline, corporal punishment, all right? Even my own little daughter, sometimes I used to just smack her hand sometimes, just like this. She was about 6 and 7, and you know what she used to think? She used to go to her bedroom, and she used to say, I wish daddy was dead. All because I just smacked her like this. Never mind the thrashing, just a smack. I would always have to go back into the room and say, Yasmin, Rebecca, I love you. You know what you did was not right, but I love you. So this is all part of the discipline. You discipline them, but you let them know that it's not really about you, it's about your behavior, and that I love you. All right?
So now we're going to move into the importance of what we're talking about to the Jamaican and church families. And we're going to look at two strands here. Firstly, biblical and church authority. The Bible is full of Bible characters depicting positive and negative role models of parenting in the couple relationship. And they serve as examples for our own learning. God wants us to be warned by the negative examples and to follow the positive examples and live. And so when we apply the biblical precepts and instructions to our own couple and mother and father relationships, we stand a better ground in not for only us, but for the future generations. The Bible says what God has joined. And Adam said, "This is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of me." Man and his wife are one flesh. What God has joined together, let no man put asunder. Let no child put asunder. Because the Lord has been a witness between you and the wife of your youth, with whom you have dealt treacherously. Yet she's your companion and your wife by covenant. So here we see God setting the mandate. It was couples before it was parenting. And so we learn from the examples of our forefathers, Adam and Eve. Our early parents depict the ideal before the ordeal. Here we see the essence of what we're talking about in this presentation: unison and strength of leadership, and mutual respect and reciprocity of loving acts were evident in the honeymoon period of Adam and Eve. So there was a monogamous relationship. It was exclusively him and her. It was Christ-centered. They had fellowship with God in the garden. It was couple-focused. It was him and it was she. There was unison and strength. They agreed in their decisions. They walked together. They furnished the garden together. Respect and loving acts. And then there was the fall, the aftermath of the fight. Lack of unison, strength of leadership. Lack of respect, name, blame, and shame. Family squabbles, disobedience, and then death. The consequences of disobedience to God's guiding principles is the sin effect that continues to cause havoc in your home and my home. Centuries down the ages, it still continues. Couple relationships, when precepts are adhered to, provide a more healthy relationship in the home. Isaac and Rebekah versus Boaz and Ruth. We all know the story of these two famous couples. Isaac and Rebekah had a family household where the relationship was child-centered. Each parent triangulated towards their favorite child. There was lack of strength and leadership. Rebekah worked behind Isaac's back, undermining his authority. Lack of communication. There was dishonesty and deceit, and a divided family. Whereas Boaz and Ruth, here we see a man of God. They were equally joined in their faith. There was a sterling in-law relationship. There was respecting leadership and respecting submission. Sterling courtship. Everything waited to its appointed time. They had a successful marriage and positive offspring used by God. It was from this line that David came. So Boaz and Ruth give us an example that even in our sinful state, even in 2012 Jamaica, it is possible to follow God's biblical mandate and still ensure a happy home. I call it managing the marriage God's way against the odds. The prophet Ellen G. White says, "Create a pure atmosphere. Every Christian home should have rules, and parents should, in their words and deportments towards each other, give to the children a precious living example of what they desire them to be. Purity in speech and true Christian courtesy should be constantly practiced. Teach children to respect themselves, to be true to God, true to principle, to respect and obey the law of God. These principles will control their lives and be carried out in their association with others." We just heard word about the Catholic Church having a whole mandate about family life, and this is what Pope Benedict has to say. The family is itself based primarily on a deep interpersonal relationship between husband and wife. Say that again. The family itself is based primarily on a deep interpersonal relationship between the husband and wife, sustained by affection and mutual understanding. Would that our children might experience more the harmony and affection between their parents, rather than disagreement and discord, since the love between father and mother is the source of great security for children, and it teaches them the beauty of a faithful and lasting love. So let's hear about the scientific evidence.
Okay, let's just keep this in context. We are looking at the importance of building the mother-father or the husband-wife relationship. And we're going to look at now some anecdotal and scientific evidence. We have here Dr. Ralph Thompson. He made an address at the Gleaners Editors Forum in 2011, that was last year. He's a veteran educator and education advocate. He cried that there are too many single parents in Jamaica. The decline in standard of family life is having a far-reaching negative effect on children academically, behaviorally, and socially, which stems from an absence of nuclear families, that's the husband and wife relationships, critical for the early stages of child development. Too many children are having children, he says. By age 15, some of these children already have 2 children. We have Esther Tyson. She has been the principal of Ardeen High School for over 11 years. And she made a contribution to the Jamaica Cleaner last year also. And she said, what is clear to me is that children from a stable environment with mother and father involvement do better academically, socially, emotionally, and mentally than those who are from non-stable homes. She says that marriage represents a legal commitment and is necessary to provide a safe place for family unit development. The accepted norm, man a dog and have gal in a bundle, she said it must change. It is these norms which produce insecure, destabilized, and marginalized children. That's something that Dr. Davison actually alluded to earlier on. Scientific research says the benefits of building mother-father or spousal relationship makes for a happy and successful wife, husband, children, and community. Okay, we have this exciting graph here, all right? What I want you to do is focus your minds on the group that says married bio, all right? There's 4 bars there, married bio. This is children who are coming from parents who are married, and all the children are the biological children to them. What we see here in the first lime green bar, we see that these are children whose parents are completely happy in the marriage. The orange bar says that the children of these parents, the parents of these children are very happy in the marriage. The yellow one says that the parents are fairly happy, and the last bar, the darkish green bar, says that they're not too happy in the marriage. If you look at the light green bar and you compare it to the dark green bar, you see that for those children who are in families where the husband and wife is completely happy, only 4% of children actually experience behavioral problems. If you look at the last bar, the dark green bar, you see that 17% of children who are in relationships where the mother and father are not too happy in the marriage, they experience behavioral problems. So what it's saying to us here is that the more happy the parents are in their relationship, the less problems the children are going to experience. That's what the message is. Even though we look at this and we say 4% here and 17% for the not too happy, If you was to actually multiply that figure by, let's say, 10,000 children in each group, what you probably find is that 400 children in the completely happy family would actually experience behavioral problems. But if you look at the non-too-happy group, you'd actually have 1,700 children who are not too happy in that group. All right, so even though this percentage looks small, the impact when you look at the whole country or you look at the global picture can be a very big difference indeed. So the message is here is saying, oh, and when you look at the next group, you see the cohabiting biological family there? So these are parents who are living together, but they're not married, but all the children do belong to them. The same pattern arises. The more happy they are in their relationship, the less problems the children will experience. The same thing again for those in the married step families. This is whereby, you know, we have the married couple, but some of the children don't belong to them. It's from a previous relationship. Once again, you see the same pattern again. The happier they are in the relationship, the less problems that you will have in the family. And the same thing again for the cohabitating step families. So the message is, if you work on your relationship, you're going to have much better, much well-adjusted children. That's the message. Instead of sometimes trying to focus on being good parents, work on your marriage. Keep your marriage happy and alive and flowing, because this is the best thing that you can do for your children. Keep a relationship strong and happy. So that's all well and good. But you know something? There is some gay activists, one by the name of Rodney Kroom and another one by the name of Somali Saris. They argue and say, well, the scientific evidence says, look, all you have to do is make sure you have a wonderful, loving relationship between the two adults and the children will be fine and happy. That's what they're saying. And so therefore, that's an argument for them to say, look, we can actually have same-sex relationship and therefore raise happy children. That's what they are arguing. I want to show you something though, all right? The same evidence that they use to argue and say that they can raise happy children. Let's go back to the marriage bio group. I want to look at the not too happy bar because that kind of brings out the picture a bit better. In the not too happy group for the married couple, you find that 70% of children experience behavioral problems. If you go to the last bar, which is the cohabitating step family, you see that 28% of children are experiencing behavioral problems. All right? And if I was to go back now to the green bar, the light green bar, where you say you're completely happy in the relationship, it's the same pattern again. The marriage, for those who are married, there are less children behavioral problems than those who are actually in different types of family structure. And so the argument then is that if you want to give your child the best start in life, have a marriage family. Develop the child into where the mother and father are the biological parents of the children. That is the best, that is the optimal type of relationship for our children. All right, so whatever the gay activists are saying, we clearly understand that raising children in a family whereby the parents are completely happy in their relationship, it is the best start you can ever give your children. It's the same thing again when we look at them as the children adjusting socially. Okay, the happier you are in a relationship, the more well-adjusted they are socially. And it doesn't matter which family structure you look at, it's the same pattern. But again, it is the optimal choice when you are in a married biological setting. Same thing again when you're looking at children engaged in school. It's the married family, once again, whereby it is the optimal place for the child. Same thing again for the parent-child communication. The message that's coming through, at the end of the day. Work on our relationship. That's the message that's coming through. It's saying that and the bigger message is that when you are in a marriage relationship with your children, it is the best start you can give your child. And once they have reached to the age, they will fly off and soar and be successful, happy children, just like you were. Oh, okay. So we have the anecdotal evidence, and we have the scientific evidence to show us that, building or working on our spousal relationship is the best thing that we can do to be effective parents. What we want to look at now is just briefly highlight some of the respect and reciprocity of loving acts. We want to look at unison and strength of leadership, and the biblical roles of mother and father. Okay, some of these was actually highlighted already. I want you to know today, people, I've been married to Sharon for 21 years this year. Is it 21 this year? 21 years this year, in August 11th. We've been married 21 years. You know what? I am the happiest man on earth. The happiest man on earth. She is the most wonderful wife I'm not saying she's perfect, but she's the most wonderful woman that God has ever sent me. And you know what's even made it even more beautiful? Is I have a wonderful mother-in-law as well. She's been a wonderful mother-in-law. Mother, raise your hand, let people see you. Okay.
I was just thinking I need to do more of these presentations. I've never had so many hugs in half an hour.
All right, so we're going to quickly just go through some of the things that make for a happy marriage. You notice here I've actually said, I've given the title here, Healthy Marriage, and I've said antecedents. All right? We have employment, we have in education, physical health, mental health, and the like. All these things actually do have an impact on marriage, but they do not actually define what a healthy marriage is. And so people can still be happy even though they're not employed. They can still be happy if they don't have a good education. All right, these things don't really define what makes a happy marriage. You can see here, though, in the picture of an Asian wedding, whereby the husband and wife, there's money being pinned to them, isn't it? Lots of money just being pinned to them. Wouldn't that be nice if we could actually do that more here? Just when we go to get married, people just pin lots of money to us. That would give us such a wonderful start to life. And basically what he's saying, when you have money, it does help your marriage. It does help to give you a good start. But it's not the defining thing for a healthy marriage, because there are a lot of people out there who are happy even though they don't have any money. So what Child Trends have said, they've identified 10 things. After all the years of research, they've identified 10 dimensions that contribute to making a happy marriage. And that's couple commitment, satisfaction in your marriage, communication, conflict resolution, lack of domestic violence, fidelity, quality time, intimacy, child commitment, and having a long and legal marriage. I love this picture here. This picture is actually of a mass wedding that took place in South Korea by the Unification Church. They were celebrating the leader's actually 90th birthday, and they had about 20,000 people getting married in that one place. There was about 20,000 people getting married in America at the same time. Wow, that must have been a very massive event, okay? Couple commitment. You notice that here I've got the word we up here. Sometimes, when me and Sharon are trying to work things out, you hear the word I, you hear you say, why don't you, and so on and so forth. But you know something? Me and Sharon, when we were putting this presentation together, there was a lot of the I and the you coming out. And that was causing us to have fights over the presentation, because I am different and she is different. And so, but when we started to use the word we, what a transformation. A powerful transformation. Just that little word we. It says that we are both in this together, and if we use this term more often, we can work things out a lot better. We need to practice the word we often. Take out the I, take out the you. All right? We plan the future together, and we are dedicated. We invest in our relationship, we endeavor to improve the relationship, and we make sacrifice. And one of the important things that we do, like one of the presenters said, we're going to always experience storms in life. We're going to always experience crises. And we just have to be determined that we're going to work through them. It's the same thing that we should have towards our children. We need to be there for them. Let them know that we're never going to leave them. We're never going to forsake them. And that in itself will actually help the marriage. Positive communication. Watch your P's and Q's. I love you, darling. Thank you for doing this for me today. That was really, really special of you. We don't hear that much in Jamaica. And you know, when people come to counseling, they say, I ask them the question, do you say I love you to your husband? And I haven't heard anybody say that yet, that they say, I love you to the husband. It's a very rare thing today. And I want to encourage every couple here, every relationship here, to say to their spouse, I love you, I appreciate you, I thank you, I adore you. Those things can actually do a lot to enhance the relationship. I know that when I say these things to Sharon, I know that things are going to look good for me later on. Because Sharon loves to hear those words of appreciation, of approval and those things. And when I say those things throughout the day, I'm in a good position, very good position. And so my encouragement to all of you men out there, say the words, I love you, I adore you.
It's 20 years, you can say that in front of the mother-in-law.
All right, and the other thing to do is actually create a win-win policy, compromise, recognize that you are different. You know, in terms of the discipline, I'm actually more authoritarian. Sharon has a more softer approach. And she, being a teacher, she has more different ways of actually disciplining the children. And I have to recognize that, Howard, you don't have to slap the children all the time. I can use some of Sharon's ideas and just work things together. So we just learn to compromise and work through our differences. Agree to disagree, because sometimes we don't always agree. Sharon sees things one way and I see things another way, and we just can't agree. And even though we might thrash it out together, Sharon still stays over there and I'm still over here. All right? So we just learn, we have to accept to agree to disagree sometimes. Focus on the problem. Focus on the problem. And too often we don't focus on the problem. When we're not getting our way, we start to call each other names. And you're too nasty this and so on and so forth. And you just destroy the person's character. And when me and Sharon find ourselves in that kind of a situation, calling each other names and saying all kind of negative things to each other, what I recognize, is just two insecure people just thrashing things out to each other. And we just have to take a step back and say, this is not right, this is not helping us. And so therefore we begin now to focus on the problem. Manage your anger. There's too much anger here, too much violence going on here, and we need to learn to manage our anger. We need to actually, when we find ourselves angry, get out of the room, go for a walk somewhere, and just calm yourself down. Because when you're in an angry situation, all kind of terrible things happen. So please learn to manage your anger. Quality time together. Look at this lovely picture here. Isn't that very romantic? We see a couple here. They're right in the middle of the sand or the beach, surrounded by a love heart shape, with a nice setting for two. Doesn't that look really romantic? It looks wonderful, doesn't it? We just hope that it's not a windy day for them. Otherwise, it's going to have too much sand going up into their food, isn't it? But that is a really wonderful setting, and we need to find more time to spend together. Sometimes Sharon and I, we go to Bloomfield House and we just have a nice meal for two. And sometimes we go for lunch together. Sometimes we just play dominoes together. But we need to actually make sure that we find time for each other to help to strengthen the relationship, because one day the children are going to leave us and it's just going to be the two of us. So we need to make sure that we strengthen our relationship, because it's too often, that we find when the children go, one of the parents go with them. And we need to actually minimize that. Work together on the relationship. Look at this cartoon picture up here, sir. There's an old couple here. Very, very old. They've lived a long marriage together. And they say, remember when shake, rattle, and roll meant more than just getting out of bed? So basically now what's happened, they used to have a really good sex life, but now that they're old, it's just You know, they can't really do much more than that, rather than just holding hands together. All right, so intimacy is not just about sex, men. It's not just about sex. It's about telling the wife, I love you. It's about saying, can I help you cook? It's about just romancing her and dining with her. And then when all that is done, when you've set all the mood, then we can actually come together and have that physical, intimate relationship together. But women need that intimacy before they feel safe to engage in the physical act. Men actually need the physical act to help them to open up and share with their wife. And so once again, we need to work together to make sure that we both the needs are being met. Fidelity. As I said, that infidelity is a big issue here in Jamaica, and Dr. Davison, he spoke about that quite a lot this morning. And my encouragement to us, especially us as men, is please be faithful to your wife. All right, leave the other people, the other women alone. And my message is the same to the women too. You know, leave the men alone. Stay with your husband, stay with your wife. It's the best thing that you can do for your children. In fact, it's the best thing that you can do for Jamaica as a whole. All right, if we just stick and work with our relationship, irrespective of what we are going through. Develop that trust. Hold hands in public. You know, when you're in church sitting together, put your arms around your wife, sit together more, and just let the others know that you can't come in here. This relationship is strong, it's solid. You can't come in here and try to take me away or take Sharon away from me. So do those public demonstrations. Avoid entanglements with people of the opposite sex. There are women out there, there are men out there who are, you know, wanting to develop a relationship with you. And once you get that emotional connection, that's the big step towards actually going towards infidelity. So we need to avoid those emotional entanglements and tame the lust of the flesh. Just because you feel in the mood, it doesn't mean you have to just go and do it. Tame the flesh, all right? We need to bring the flesh in control through the Spirit, don't we? All right, and the other thing here, you see this couple here, Mariah Carey with her partner? Every year, they get married again. Every year. And that's how it keeps their marriage alive. And they've been married 7 years, and every year they get married again. And it's fun for them, and they enjoy it, and it keeps their marriage alive. I'm not saying that you must do the same thing, because I imagine that must be very expensive. What I'm saying, though, is that we need to do things to keep the relationship alive. Be independent. Have an independent life. Men, it is okay to go out and play some dominoes with your friends. Ladies, it's okay to go out and actually do some exercise with your friends. You don't always have to be in each other's in space all the time. We need the space. If you don't have the space, it's going to tear down your relationship, because you get frustrated and annoyed and need some time away. And it's funny, you know, when you actually have that independent time for yourself, it's amazing how when the absence makes the heart grow fonder, and you come together again and everything is all right.
So now we move on to the next strand, next two strands. Unison and strength of leadership is one of them. And so, having enriched the couple relationship, the husband and wife are now in a stronger position to create a mother and father relationship that depicts unison and strength of leadership. Mothers and fathers need a united front. First and foremost, we've established you need to build a happy spousal relationship. The father is saying to the child, you should do what your mother says, however silly it is. So there's, you know, you may disagree, but there's a united front. So we nurture the couple relationship to keep it vital. And then the mother and father can both enjoy shared parenting. Here we have the famous Obamas. When we went to America in 2008, the girls was about 9 and 7, and we went into the bathroom, and this American lady said, oh, they're just like the Obama girls. And I was thinking, who are the Obama girls? This is before they really took off when they were this famous presidential couple. So here we have the Obama family. And so before us we see the strong relationship between the mother and father, and that presents a united front before their children. Of course, in number 1, we see that there's going to be differences. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. God made us different so that we could add those different elements to the marriage relationship. So we have to accept that we're going to come from different angles by virtue of one being male and one being female. And then discuss the challenges. We often advise couples to, if there is a challenging issue, don't meet the husband or wife at the door and deal with it then. Give them time to unload, download, and then arrange a time later on when both are comfortable and relaxed where you can discuss the heavier work. And then compromise. It's not he win, she win. It's let the relationship win. So compromise, agree to disagree. And then there's always going to be conflict. We should respect conflict, expect conflict, but it's how we respond in the conflict. So we talked about using the I word instead of the you always do this. The approach would be, I feel when you come home late, I feel neglected, and I would appreciate such and such instead. Avoid triangulation. So here we see the beautiful triangulation between mother, father, and then the children. When we thought about the Isaac and Rebecca relationship, we saw where the mother, Rebecca, triangulated. She drew the affections that should have been towards her husband, the power and the respect that should have been towards her husband, and she placed that within her children. And we see Isaac did the same in contrast with his child. That's what we call triangulation, where we bring the children into the adult business to strengthen our argument against the partner. So it's the couple discussing the issue first, and they presenting a united front to their children. And by some time, Hal talked about when the argument's heated, and most often it would be the male that feels that he needs to withdraw, shut down, silence treatment. We heard the Trotmans talking about stonewalling. In all couple relationships, we say yes, have that time, space out, but come back together again at an agreed time so you can finish the subject. The Bible says don't go to sleep on the argument. And some couples, 20, 30 years, still pointing the finger because they remembered that incident in 1950, 60 something. How much sleep did they get? They obviously went to bed on the argument, and it's just perpetuated and precipitated until it's grown out of all proportion, and then have actually forgotten what the whole conflict was about. So buy some time. Yes, separate, but remember to come back together. And be honest with your differences. And then when you have a joint solution plan, go forward with that agreed plan. We want to bring it back. We talked about the manual, that there's no manual for father and mother parenting. But thank God there is the Bible. And if we search for the hidden treasure within, we can see there are examples and instructions for us to follow. So there's the essential P's of paparing. The father, there's some P's that we need to think about. Quickly discuss with your partner what you think are some of those P's, the roles that a father needs to play. Beginning with P. Let me give you the first one. So quickly discuss with your partner, see if your list matches mine. One of the essential P's of being a father is being a priest. Let's see if your list matches with mine. One of the essential P's of being a papa is providing. 1 Timothy 5:8. One of the essential P's is protecting. Provoking not our children, being patient, praying. If you do nothing else, pray. And then he partners with his wife. Proverbs 31 sums up the essentials of being a good wife. But within that, you see the signs of being a good mother, and you see the signs of being a good father. I'm going to start with the mothers. We're using this acronym. She's maternal, excellent merchandiser. She malices not. We use that term over here. We don't bear malice. She malices not. She multitasks. Oh my goodness. I salute her for that one. She's open, she's organized. T, she trusts God and she trains her children. H, she's a helpmate. She's a health provider. She gets up early and cooks the good meals. She's a homemaker. She's an educator. She encourages. She's economical. And in this time of crisis, we need that. She's an early riser. Mothers have so much to do. We have to get up early. She's an early riser. She respects her husband and does him no harm. He feels safe to communicate with her and talk about his needs. And she supports her husband. She's smart. She's a source of goodness, and she sews. How many of us has lost that skill of sewing? And then the fathers, comparative, you pick up the messages all within that proverb of not only the wife's role, but the mother and the father. He fears God. He also must look after the finances. He's affectionate, he's available, he accepts advice, he's admonished. He trains and teaches. Her children cannot be a good example if he's not partnering with her. He's into health too. He encourages, he's an educator, he's an earner. He respects his wife. He's recognized within the gate because of her goodness. He rears his children. He's a spiritual leader. He supports his children, and he safely trusts in his wife because he knows she will do him no harm. And so the father-mother relationship, the father-child relationship is a unique one. The father is to manage his house well and see that his children obey him with proper respect. So the father needs to spend time with their children, know their interests, temperate, and their friends. Let me test you with a simple quiz. Mentally do this quiz in your head. It's more challenging if you have teenagers. But do you know the name of 2 of your children's friends? 2 of their best friends. Mentally just see if you know that. True or false? Do you talk to your children every day? Not talking about the children who've left home, obviously, even though some of us I know are constantly on the phone. Do you know your children's favorite meal? Their color? Do you know their class teacher? Do you know their favorite hobbies? It takes time to build up relationship with your children. Get to know them, and then the relationship develops automatically. Deuteronomy says, "These commandments I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them upon your children." God requires the father to rear their children in a God-centered way. And the primary objective, he told Adam and Eve to go forth and procreate. He expects us to produce godly offspring from generation to generation. But also the mother and child relationship is a sacred one. Psalms 127 says, "Unless the Lord builds a house, its builders labor in vain." I love this quote from Ellen G. White. The mother is the queen of the home. Prince Harry just came over. His mother is the Queen of England. She has to govern the whole nation and also the sister nations, including Jamaica. So imagine the queen. We are the queen of the home. Our rule, our royalty. We have the power that molds a nation. Have you ever thought of it that way? And angels are jealous of the roles that we play. God has not appointed a higher work than that of being a mother. And then Ellen G. White talks about the child in the room and the influences that go on there. And it's only now that science is beginning to catch up with the fact that a child is able to absorb the emotions and the violence and the influences that are going on whilst they're in the womb state. And so that's when the mother and father relationship must be so much more extra tender and keeping the wives free from stress and the cares of this world. And it's not only in the genetic state that the mother influences the child. These cells are formed in the womb. And then these cells are developed by the proper nutriment and diet that she gives them. The character training and the temperament is both nurturing, and nature plays a vital role. The mother has a very important task. We touched on a little bit about this, about discipline. So here we see this child surrounded by all the latest shops and gadgets. We see this child who's indisciplined on another level, raises himself eats the wrong thing, and has a diet of TV. The Bible warns against undue discipline. And parents need to be aware of a child's cognitive age and development when disciplined. We can't expect a 4-year-old to wash the plates. And if the child breaks the plate, it's only expected that at that age they'd be more clumsier than, say, the 14-year-old. And so we give children tasks that reflect their age ability, and the discipline must also reflect the age ability. We must have a more cognitive understanding of where the child is coming from that age. We talked about remembering your P's and your Q's. The household of Mr. and Mrs. Eli, overindulgent parenting, and we see what happened to that household. God is going to hold us responsible for the spoiling of our children. And there's different ways to discipline. As a teacher, I could not, I'm going to try and wrap up here quickly, spank 30 children in a class. You have to find different methods to do that. Time out, time charts, so when the child meets the requirements, they get a reward. Appropriate discipline, spanking on the soft places of the body or of the hand. Faces are no-nos, thrashings are no-nos. We need to set the example by role modeling. Just to say here, Jane Dobson warns against the busy culture of taking the child to piano, football, and all these different activities. Focus the child in their giftedness so that you don't wear yourself out running around after the children and can spend time in your couple relationship. We've touched on this quite a bit, sexual identity, and Mr. Davidson did a good job telling us how boys and girls formulate their sexual identity. I looked at some research that said the relationship that a child has with their father, a girl has with their father in the early years, correlates with her sexual experience in the bedroom, because she learns how to trust the male of the opposite sex and be confident in her own self and her own body. We need to teach children how to take care of their body. And Howard, when the children turn 12, he takes them out on their first date. He takes them out for dinner, he drives them down, he opens the door, he pulls out the chair. He is modeling how their future partner should treat them as a queen and a lady. And if nobody can come up to that standard, move on to the next one. So, the positives. Bringing God into the couple relationship. What's the payoff? It's good for the parent-child relationship. It's emotionally healthier. There's less suicide ideation, less sexual transmitted diseases, less divorces as an adult. It's good. We see the parallels between the women and the men. Better mother-father-child relationships. Physical healthier, sexually healthier, wealthier, and less poverty. Your child's greatest need is not so much two parents who love him or her, but two parents who love each other. The most important marriage course your child will ever take is the one that you offer in your home. Your sons and daughters will be observing you as models for the privileges and responsibilities of the marriage that one day they will have. The ideal we talked about is not to create the same some type of utopia where the child is reared in a perfect environment, but is to provide a warm, affectionate, home, Christ-centered environment. Being a successful parent is not synonymous with perfection. Rather, a good parent is a conscientious person who takes time to become knowledgeable, and that's what you're doing today, becoming knowledgeable about parenting skills and research. And such parents and such couples recognize it's never too late to change. So, as we close, look at your couple relationship. Look at your mother-father relationship and ask yourself, what legacy am I leaving behind? An ocean cruiser is a huge vessel, and it takes time if you wanted to turn the course. So the idea is to start simple. If you go home and try and put everything in practice at once, it's ill-advised, because you might find yourself running aground. As you make these changes and put them in place, you may experience resistance. People don't want to change from what's comfortable. But keep pressing on, keep holding firm to the principles that you want to hold on to. It takes about 10 days to change a habit, 10 continuous days to break a habit. Put something simple in place. Hello, how are you? How was your day? Start with the simple things and build up, and after 10 days, you should see the changes. The only way we can change our environment is if we change ourselves first. And so, allow yourself to be human. We'll all make mistakes. But if you do run aground, call the emergency services. Jesus is always close at hand. He wants to see you happy in your relationship. He wants to see children happy in their home. And he wants to see a new and bigger and better Jamaica. As you go forward, I pray that you will hold God's hand to do this. Thank you very much.